The first sign that something was wrong was not the DNA test. It was the way my mother-in-law looked at my son after everyone else had gone to sleep. She stood in the hallway outside his bedroom, staring at him through the half-open door, not smiling, not speaking, just watching. My son Noah was 6 years old at the time. He was asleep under a blue blanket, one hand wrapped around his favorite stuffed bear. I was standing behind her. "What are you doing?" She turned so quickly that she almost dropped the small white object in her hand. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. That smile. The one she used whenever she knew she had been caught doing something she didn't want to explain. I was checking on my grandson. With that, she looked at the object in her hand. It was a cotton swab. My stomach tightened. "Why do you have a swab?" She laughed softly. "You watch too many detective shows, Mom." My husband, Ethan, was asleep downstairs. He had worked late and barely made it through dinner before falling asleep on the couch. I lowered my voice. "Why were you taking something from Noah?" She shrugged. "It was nothing." I looked toward Noah, then back at her. "Did you put that in his mouth?" She didn't answer. That was my answer. I stepped forward. "Give it to me." Her face changed. For the first time, the smile disappeared. "You have no right to question me in my own son's house. Our house." She stared at me. Then she placed the swab into the pocket of her cardigan. "I think you're being paranoid." I didn't sleep that night. Something had happened. I didn't know what. But I knew my mother-in-law Victoria well enough to recognize when she was hiding something. She had always been controlling. She had opinions about everything. How I cooked. How I dressed. How I raised Noah. What time he went to bed. What school he should attend. Even what kind of shoes he wore. But there was one thing she had never questioned openly. Whether Noah was Ethan's son. At least, not until that night. The next morning, Victoria was already gone. She had left before breakfast. I asked Ethan about it. "Where did Mom go?" He looked confused. "She said she had an appointment." "What kind?" "I don't know." I hesitated. "Did your mom ever ask you about Noah's DNA?" Ethan laughed. "What? DNA?" He stopped smiling. "Why would you ask that? I caught her taking a swab from Noah last night." His face changed. "What?" "I saw her." He sat down. "Are you sure?" "Maybe she was checking for something." Without asking me. He rubbed his forehead. "That doesn't sound like Mom." I stared at him. "Exactly." He didn't answer. I knew he loved his mother. Sometimes too much. Victoria had raised him after his father left when he was young. She constantly reminded him of the sacrifices she had made. She had paid his school fees, worked extra shifts, helped him through college, supported him when he started his business. And because of that, Ethan had spent his entire life believing he owed her something. Victoria knew it. She used it. But I never imagined she would use it against my son. That afternoon, I checked the trash. The cotton swab was gone. Then I noticed something else. A message on Victoria's phone. She had accidentally left it on our kitchen counter when she came back. I wasn't trying to read her private messages, but the screen lit up. One notification appeared. "Sample received. We can begin the comparison." My heart stopped. I picked up the phone. Another message appeared. "Results should be available within several days." I put the phone down. My hands were shaking. A DNA test. She had secretly taken my son's DNA, but why? And who was she comparing it to? I knew I should tell Ethan immediately. But before I could, Victoria walked into the kitchen. She looked at me, then at her phone, then back at me. Her expression became cold. "You saw that?" It wasn't a question. I nodded. "What are you doing?" She smiled. "Finding the truth." "What truth?" She walked toward me. "The truth about your son?" I felt my heart sink. "What does that mean?" She leaned closer. "You'll know soon enough." Then she picked up her phone and walked away. I stood there frozen. Because in that moment I understood something. This wasn't about Noah. It was about me. Victoria didn't trust me. And she was looking for something that would prove I had betrayed her son. But she had no idea. The test she secretly ordered was about to expose a secret she had spent decades hiding. I met Victoria 3 years before I married Ethan. She didn't like me from the beginning. I knew it immediately. She smiled when Ethan introduced us. She hugged me. She told me I was beautiful. But her eyes were cold. Later that evening, after I left, she told Ethan, "She's not what you think." He defended me. "Mom, you barely know her. I know women like her." That sentence became a pattern. Whenever we argued, Victoria had an opinion. Whenever Ethan and I made a decision, she questioned it. When we bought our first house, she said the neighborhood wasn't good enough. When I became pregnant, She said I wasn't taking enough vitamins. When Noah was born, she complained that we didn't give her enough time with him. And when Noah started calling me, Mummy, she became strangely quiet. It was almost as if she resented the bond between us. One afternoon, when Noah was 4, I walked into the living room and heard, Grandma is the one who really understands you. I froze. Noah looked at her, then at me. It's bath time. Victoria watched him go. You spoil him. I turned. He's 4. Exactly. What does that mean? She smiled. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Victoria had a way of saying things that sounded harmless until you thought about them later. Then there was Ethan. He loved his mother. I understood that. But sometimes he couldn't see her clearly. Whenever I tried to explain what she was doing, he said, she's just protective. Or, that's how mom is. Or, don't take it personally. I eventually stopped trying. Not because I agreed. Because I didn't want my marriage to become a constant argument about his mother. Then came Noah's 6th birthday. Victoria gave him an expensive silver bracelet. It looked beautiful, but there was something strange about it. A tiny symbol was engraved on the inside. I asked what it meant. Victoria said, family. I didn't think much of it, until months later, when I saw the same symbol on an old photograph of Ethan's father. That photograph had been hidden in a drawer. I asked Ethan about it. He said, that's Dad. I looked at the symbol. What's this? He shrugged. I don't know. Do you have other pictures? No. What happened to him? Ethan's expression changed. He left. Why? Mom doesn't like talking about it. That should have been my warning. Instead, I accepted it. Because everyone has family secrets. I never imagined one would come back through my son. After Victoria took the DNA sample, I started noticing everything. She asked strange questions. What color were Noah's eyes when he was born? Does he have any birthmarks? Who does he look like? What did the doctor say about his blood type? At first, I answered casually. Then I stopped. She would smile, just curious. But she wasn't curious. She was collecting information. One night I asked Ethan, do you think your mother believes Noah isn't yours? He stared at me. Why would she think that? Because she took his DNA. He went silent. Then he said, maybe she's checking something. Checking what? I don't know. Then ask her. He didn't. Instead, he defended her. She wouldn't do anything to hurt us. I looked at him. He sighed. Let's not fight about this. I walked away. I didn't want to fight. I wanted answers. And I was about to get them. Because 3 days later, Victoria called Ethan. She said she had something important to discuss. And she wanted both of us there. We went to Victoria's house that evening. She was sitting at the dining table. There were 2 envelopes in front of her. One had Ethan's name, the other had Noah's. My stomach dropped. What are those? Victoria looked at Ethan. Sit down. Ethan did. Mom, what did you do? She looked at me. I ordered a DNA test. Ethan stared at her. A family DNA test? Why? Victoria looked directly at me. Because I had questions. I felt anger rising. You had no right. She ignored me. I needed to know whether Noah is really Ethan's son. The room went silent. Ethan stood up. Mom, I did what I had to do. You took my son's DNA without permission. I took a sample, without asking. She looked at him. You were too blind to ask the right questions. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ethan turned toward me. Then back to his mother. Are you saying you think my wife cheated on me? Victoria said nothing. That silence was worse than an accusation. Ethan's face turned red. Mom, I needed proof. Proof of what? That you are his father. Ethan looked at me. I could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to defend me. But some part of him was still afraid of his mother. Victoria pushed the envelope toward him. The results are here. Ethan didn't touch it. I did. I picked up the envelope. Victoria nodded. Then let's read it. I opened it. The first result was clear. Probability of paternity 99.99%. Ethan was Noah's biological father. I looked at Victoria. She had expected something else. Her face fell. You see, I said. You were wrong. She didn't answer. Then she opened her own envelope, and everything changed. She read the second report. Her hands started shaking. What is it? Ethan asked. She couldn't speak. I took the paper. The test wasn't just a paternity test. It was a comparison between Noah and another family member. The results showed a genetic relationship that none of us expected. Noah shared a significant genetic match with Victoria's husband, Ethan's stepfather, a man named Robert. Victoria looked at the report, then at Ethan, then at me. Ethan frowned. She whispered, no. What does that mean? It can't be. Robert had been Victoria's husband for 25 years. He had raised Ethan. He was the only father figure Ethan remembered. And yet the DNA report suggested something impossible. The biological relationship between Robert and Noah was much closer than it should have been. Rachel, the lawyer we later consulted, explained it carefully. The test did not prove everything by itself, but it showed a relationship pattern that needed further investigation. And when another test was ordered, the truth became undeniable. Robert was not simply Ethan's stepfather, he was Ethan's biological father. Ethan stared at the report. No, Victoria closed her eyes. He looked at her. Mom? She said nothing. As Robert, my father. She started crying. That was when I knew. The DNA test Victoria had secretly ordered to prove I had betrayed her son, had uncovered her own betrayal. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because Robert wasn't supposed to be Ethan's father. According to the story Victoria had told everyone for 25 years, Ethan's biological father had disappeared before Ethan was born. Robert had supposedly entered their lives afterward. Now the DNA was saying something completely different, and Ethan wanted answers. Robert was furious when we confronted him, not because the DNA was wrong, because he knew it was right. He sat in the living room with his hands clasped together. Victoria stood behind him. Ethan looked between them. Tell me. Robert didn't speak. Tell me the truth. Victoria whispered. His voice cracked. I spent my entire life believing my father left. Robert looked at him. I never left you. Ethan stared. What? I was there. Then why didn't I know you were my father? Robert looked at Victoria, and that look told us everything. She had hidden it. For 25 years. She had told Ethan that his biological father abandoned her. She had told him Robert was simply the man who helped raise him. She had built an entire family story around a lie. But why? Robert finally spoke. Your mother and I were already involved before you were born. Victoria looked down. We were separated. Robert continued. She told me she was leaving. I was young, Victoria said. Young enough to lie to everyone. Her face hardened. Don't act innocent. I never said I was. Ethan looked confused. Why did you hide this? Victoria finally broke. Because I was afraid. Of what? Of losing you. Robert looked at her. You were afraid I'd take you away. You wanted custody. Because you told me I wasn't your father. Ethan stepped backward. What? Robert explained. Victoria had told him the child wasn't his. She had claimed another man was Ethan's biological father. Robert had believed her. He stayed anyway. He married her. He raised Ethan. And for years, he lived under the belief that he had no biological connection to the boy he called his son. But there was another secret. Robert had suspected the truth for years. He had noticed that Ethan looked like his own family. The same eyes, the same smile, the same distinctive birthmark. But he never confronted Victoria, until now. Why? She cried. Because I thought if you knew, everything would fall apart. Ethan laughed bitterly. It just did. I stood quietly. This wasn't my story. But somehow my son had become the key that opened it. Then Robert looked at me. I'm sorry. For what? For what my wife did. I didn't know what to say. He continued. She was always suspicious of you. I know. She thought you would take Ethan away. Why? Because she believed you were replacing her. That sentence explained everything. Victoria didn't really hate me. She feared losing control. She had spent decades building her identity around being the person Ethan needed most. Then I came into his life. Then Noah was born. And suddenly, Ethan had a family that didn't revolve around her. She couldn't accept it. So she searched for proof that something was wrong. She thought she would find evidence against me. Instead, she found evidence against herself. But there was still one question. Why had the DNA test connected Robert so strongly to Noah? The answer was simple. Because Robert was Ethan's biological father, and Noah was Ethan's biological son. The DNA had simply followed the family line. The test Victoria ordered had not destroyed my marriage. It had destroyed the lie holding hers together. We could have stopped there. But Ethan wanted certainty. He needed another test. Not because he doubted me, because his entire childhood had suddenly become a question. So we arranged independent testing. This time everyone agreed. Ethan, Robert, Victoria, and Noah. The results took several days. Those days were difficult. Ethan barely spoke. He kept looking through old photographs. He found pictures of himself as a baby. He found school records. He found birthday cards from Robert. And slowly, he realized something. Even though Robert had been kept from the truth, he had always been there. Robert had taught him to ride a bicycle. He had attended his school events. He had stayed awake when Ethan was sick. He had taught him how to fix things. He had been his father in every way that mattered. Biology had not created their relationship, love had, but the lie had stolen years from them. Then the second test arrived. The results confirmed everything. Robert was Ethan's biological father. Ethan was Noah's biological father. And I was Noah's biological mother. There was no betrayal between Ethan and me. None. Victoria had spent years fearing an enemy who didn't exist. She had created a problem because she needed someone to blame. But now she had to face what she had done. The confrontation happened at her house. Robert placed the reports on the table. I want a divorce. Victoria froze. What? You lied to me for 25 years. I was scared. You were scared, so you stole my right to know my own son. She began crying. I thought you'd leave. I would never have left Ethan. You don't know that. I know what I would have done if you'd told me the truth. He pointed at the report. You made the choice for me. Ethan stood beside him. Mom. She looked at him. I did everything for you. Ethan shook his head. No. She looked confused. You did everything to keep control of me. That sentence broke her. She sat down. For the first time she had no argument, no excuse, no one left to blame. I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad. Because the truth was that Victoria had destroyed her own marriage long before that DNA test. The test simply revealed it. After the results became known, Victoria tried one last thing. She blamed me. She called me and said, you did this. I couldn't believe it. Did what? You turned Ethan against me. No, you brought that DNA test into my family. You ordered it. Silence. Then she said, I only did it because I knew something was wrong. You were wrong. She began crying. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. You took my son? No. I said it quietly. I married him. I didn't take him. She didn't respond. You think I stole Ethan from you because he loves me? I never said that. You didn't have to? I continued. You were so afraid of losing control that you accused me of betraying him. She whispered. I was protecting my family. No. I took a breath. You were protecting a lie. She hung up. That was the last time we spoke for several months. Ethan changed after that. Not overnight, but slowly. He stopped letting his mother make every decision. He began setting boundaries. He visited Robert regularly. And he spent more time with Noah. One evening, I found Ethan sitting beside Noah's bed. Noah was asleep. Ethan was holding his hand. I stood in the doorway. What are you doing? He smiled. Just watching him. I remembered the night Victoria had stood in that same doorway, watching Noah, holding the cotton swab. I walked closer. Ethan looked at me. I'm sorry. For what? For not believing you immediately. You believed me eventually. I should have believed you from the beginning. I sat beside him. You were raised to trust your mother. He nodded. I was raised to think questioning her was betrayal. No, you know it isn't. He looked at Noah. I almost let her fear destroy my family. But you didn't. He squeezed my hand. No. Then he smiled. I think Noah saved me. I looked at him. His DNA forced me to face the truth. I smiled. Funny. What? The test was supposed to prove I wasn't good enough. And instead, it proved you were exactly where you belonged. Few months later, Victoria asked to see us. She looked different, older, tired. The confidence was gone. She sat across from us. I owe you both an apology. Ethan didn't respond. She looked at me. Especially you. I remained silent. I accused you of things you never did, Wes. I treated you like an outsider. Yes. I took Noah's DNA without your permission. Yes. She swallowed. I was wrong. I looked at her. Why did you really think I would betray Ethan? She hesitated. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? That he'd choose you. I shook my head. You were never competing with me. She looked down. I know that now. No. I said it gently. I don't think you do. She looked up. Family isn't a competition. She started crying. I know. Do you? She nodded. I continued. You spent years believing that if Ethan loved me, there would be less love left for you. She wiped her eyes. But that's not how love works. Ethan finally spoke. You should have trusted me. Victoria looked at him. I was afraid. And because you were afraid, you lied. She nodded. I did. Robert was not there. Their divorce had already been filed. Their marriage had ended. Not because of the DNA test. Because of 25 years of secrets. The DNA simply removed the final curtain. Victoria asked if she could still see Noah. Ethan looked at me. I didn't answer for him. This was his decision. Finally he said, not without boundaries. She nodded. I understand. And for the first time, she actually did. People sometimes ask me whether I hated Victoria. The answer is no. I was angry, I was hurt, I was disappointed. But hate would have given her too much space in my life. She had already taken enough. The strangest part of the whole story is that the DNA test was supposed to answer one question: was Noah really Ethan's son? It answered that. But it also answered another question. Who was actually telling the truth? The answer was me. And it answered something else. Who had been living behind a carefully constructed lie? Victoria. She thought DNA would expose me. Instead, it exposed her. But the biggest lesson wasn't about genetics. It was about trust. You cannot build a healthy family on secrets. You cannot protect someone by stealing their right to know the truth. And you cannot control people forever by making them afraid to question you. Victoria spent 25 years believing that hiding the truth would protect her marriage. Instead, the truth was always waiting. And when it finally came out, it didn't destroy the family, it destroyed the lie. Robert and Ethan eventually became very close. They spent weekends together. They discovered family traditions. They visited relatives Ethan had never known existed. Noah loved visiting his grandfather. And I watched all of it with a strange feeling in my heart. Because something good had come from something terrible. The DNA test that had been taken in secret had exposed a truth that had been hidden for decades. And while Victoria lost her marriage, Ethan gained a father. Noah gained a grandfather. And I gained something I hadn't realized I needed: peace. One night years later, Noah asked me, "Mom, why did Grandma take my DNA?" I looked at him. He was older now, old enough to understand some things. I smiled. Because sometimes adults get scared. Scared of what? Losing people. He thought about that. Did she lose Grandpa? I nodded. Yes, 'cause of me. I immediately shook my head. No. Then why? Because of secrets. He looked confused. I said, never think someone else's choices are your fault. He nodded. Then he asked, did the test help? I smiled. In a strange way. How? It showed us the truth. He smiled. Truth is good. I hugged him. Always. That night, after Noah went to bed, I found the old cotton swab container in a drawer. I had kept it. Not because I wanted to remember the pain, but because I wanted to remember the lesson. The night Victoria secretly took my son's DNA, I thought she was trying to destroy my family. I was wrong. She was accidentally opening a door. Behind that door was a 25-year-old secret, a hidden father, a broken marriage, a family story that had never been what everyone believed. And the most important truth of all, you cannot control the truth forever. Eventually it finds a way out. 10. The truth always finds its way home. Looking back, I realized the DNA test was never really about Noah. It was about fear. Victoria was afraid. Afraid of losing Ethan. Afraid of losing her place. Afraid of being exposed, so she looked for evidence. She thought she would find something that proved I wasn't worthy of her son. Instead, she found the one thing she had spent 25 years trying to hide. The truth. And that's the strange thing about secrets. The longer you hide them, the heavier they become. You think you're protecting yourself, but really, you're building a wall. And eventually, you have to live behind it. Victoria built that wall. The DNA test knocked it down. I didn't. Ethan didn't. Robert didn't. The truth did. And maybe that's why I no longer see the story as one about revenge. It was never about getting even. It was about refusing to let someone else's fear define my family. I didn't expose Victoria to punish her. I simply refused to accept a lie. And sometimes, that's enough. So if there's one thing I want you to remember from my story, it's this: don't be afraid of the truth. Truth can hurt. Truth can change relationships. Truth can end marriages. Truth can force people to face things they spent years avoiding. But lies quietly destroy everything from the inside. Victoria thought a DNA test would prove that I had betrayed her son. Instead, the test proved that I had never betrayed him at all. And it exposed the secret that finally destroyed the marriage she had spent 25 years trying to protect. Today, when I look at Noah, I don't think about that DNA test anymore. I think about the family he helped rebuild. I think about Ethan and Robert laughing together. I think about the grandfather Noah almost never had. And I think about how one secret acted. Not the way Victoria expected, but perhaps exactly the way it needed to. Because sometimes the truth doesn't arrive gently. Sometimes it arrives in an envelope. Sometimes it arrives as a DNA report. Sometimes it arrives when everyone is finally ready to stop pretending. And when it does, you have a choice. You can run from it, or you can face it. We faced it. And in the end, the truth didn't destroy our family. It destroyed the lie that had been standing in its way. And that was the greatest revenge I could have ever asked for. TTE end.